everyone, I'm Sanjana Pundit, and welcome back to Infusions of Art, a mini-series dedicated to spotlighting some of Houston Methodist Hospital's renowned physician artists and artist caregivers. For today's episode, we will be hearing from Majesca Wong. Majesca Wong is a music therapist working with the palliative care team to support patients throughout Houston Methodist Hospital. Palliative care is an interdisciplinary medical caregiving approach aimed at optimizing quality of life and mitigating suffering among people with serious, complex, and often terminal illnesses. After she completed her four-year undergraduate degree in music therapy at California State University, Northridge, and her internship at Music to Grow On in Sacramento, she worked primarily in special education and implemented group music therapy for older adults. 5 years later, Majesca joined CPAM as a palliative care music therapist, fulfilling a dream she has held since she moved to Houston. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off with, a lot of people might not know exactly what music therapy is. So do you think you could give us a quick definition of that?
Absolutely. In the medical setting, music therapy is an allied health profession wherein we receive referrals from the patient's care team. Music therapists will complete a comprehensive assessment and assess the patients for whatever goal it is that they have while here in the hospital. So we'll get a referral reason for lots of times medical issues like shortness of breath, hypertension or hypotension, or psycho-emotional, anxiety, depression, even pain management. And so through our comprehensive assessment, music therapists find a really unique avenue to assist patients with the things that they're coming into the hospital for. The only difference between music therapy and any other therapy is that we use music as the medium for change. And so we really rely on the psychological components of music as well as the physiological components of music to alleviate pain, to help process medical trauma through music, to give patients autonomy, choice, to help them process their emotional responses while in the hospital. Because we work in an interdisciplinary fashion with the rest of the patient's care team, we have a really unique sense of what it is the patient needs and how we can use music to fit those needs.
When did you know that you wanted to pursue music therapy, and what were some of the challenges you faced sort of in the early stages of your career?
Yeah, well, music therapy is still growing as a profession tremendously, and we've seen a lot of growth in the past decade. I want to say, unless I'm mistaken, there are between 50 and 60 schools in the United States that offer music therapy as an undergrad, so that was definitely a barrier, right, when choosing a profession, because not every school is going to offer your major. All I knew is that I wanted to go into a helping profession. So I was looking at preschool teaching. I was looking at nursing for a little bit. But my high school band director, because I was in the band, introduced me to a music therapist because he said, I really think music should be a part of your career. And I had no idea at the time what music therapy was. I got introduced to the first music therapist I knew when I was a senior in high school, and I was afforded the ability to shadow her for a day. And I saw the ways that music was making a difference in her clients' everyday lives. And I kind of decided there and then that music therapy was the choice that I wanted to go with for my profession. Luckily, I lived in California, in which there are 2 music therapy schools, and one of them was in Los Angeles, which was an hour away from Anaheim, where I grew up. So I kind of set on that path. And as you mentioned, I started in special education during my internship. But after that, I quickly learned that I very much enjoyed working with the older adults population and started volunteering as a bedside music therapist in a nursing home, which led me to start working in hospice. But yeah, I would say some of the barriers were just that you have to kind of recognize that if you live in a city where there is not a music therapy school available to you and you would really like to stay in your hometown, that might be something to consider. Of course, finding an internship, applying for the internship, and then at the very end of everything, passing the board certification exam, which every practicing music therapist must pass in order to start practicing music therapy as a board certified music therapist. So,
You mentioned you were in the band. So this question might be sort of obvious within and of itself, but do you see a connection between, your background in music and then your chosen field in medicine?
I think every music therapist has a special connection to music and a history and a background. Even when I was a small child, I was introduced to really high quality music via my family. My father and his brothers loved to trade and sell really high quality records and speakers. And so the love of music was fostered in my life quite early. And I started playing piano when I was a child. When I joined middle school and then high school, I think there was a natural progression where it was kind of like, well, yeah, Majesca's going to be in band. And it just furthered my love for music because now I had a creative outlet and I was making music with others. And I think that was really the connection, was that I was making something, I was creating something with others to provide to an audience or someone to enjoy. My love wasn't necessarily the product, but the creation, the process, versus the product. And that's the thing in music therapy, is we're not very focused on the product. Patients will say, I've never played an instrument in my life. I can't play the drums. I can't carry a tune. Because music therapy is more focused on the process of music, we don't pay as much attention to how quote unquote beautiful the music is.
And I love what you said, though. Yeah, it's the journey, the fact that you create music to provide to someone. Like, I love that aspect of camaraderie and coming together. That's why performing artists do what they do. That's why musicians do what they do, because there's this beauty of working together to create this art to better someone else's life in a way they may not even realize. I just think that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You are still in your very early stages of your career, but what have been some of the most meaningful moments that you can think of thus far?
Because music has such an ability to get in touch with people's emotions, and maybe a way that words don't feel safe to do yet. Some of the most meaningful experiences for me have been the patients that are struggling with the processing piece of whatever it is, the trajectory of their illness, or coming to terms with a poor prognosis, walking the journey to acceptance, and how music can fit so beautifully in that process. One of the things that was really meaningful for me to learn, especially as a hospice music therapist and now as a palliative music therapist, is that it's okay to walk into a room knowing that you're not going to fix what's going on. And I think as medical professionals, and definitely in the helping profession, we're fixers, right? We're like, okay, what's the problem? Let me fix it. What's this? What can I do to alleviate this symptom? What can I do to, cure this disease? So one of the biggest shifts for me as a clinician was walking into a room and knowing I'm not going to fix this problem. As a hospice music therapist, I'm not going to stop this family from losing their loved one. But how can I make that transition more peaceful for them? How can I make this time a little bit more bearable and beautiful for the family? Some of the ways I've been able to do that as a music therapist are through legacy projects. And one really unique legacy project that music therapists can do is the heartbeat recording. Recording a patient's heartbeat as a lasting memory for the patient's family, doing some rapport building and life review with the family to figure out what's a really meaningful song that makes you think of your loved one, that will always remind you of them. And then taking their heartbeat and recording that song over their heartbeat, using that beat as kind of the rhythmic basis of the song. So those have been really meaningful. And I've had families reach out, months later to say, this makes me feel more connected, or just this makes me feel like my loved one is still here with me. Those experiences have been really meaningful. Working in hospice, of course, before coming here to Methodist, I was in patients' homes, patients and families' homes. And so that's really meaningful as well, because we think of birth as this incredibly special and sacred experience. We think of death as something we don't want to talk about, and it's kind of forbidden. And so my hope is that I can make it as special and sacred of an experience for the patient and family, and something hopefully to be cherished. And so if I can do that through my work as a music therapist, then those are the experiences that really stick out and are meaningful to me. My grandmother came here from China when she was in her, let's say, late 30s. She already had 3 boys by then, and she loved music. And so some of my earliest memories were, we had this upright piano, this really sweet upright piano when I was growing up, because I always lived with my grandparents when I was little. Some of my earliest memories were literally laying underneath the piano as she played and sang, and feeling kind of like, maybe it wasn't the best for my ears because it was quite loud, but feeling kind of the vibrations of music and just having this person that you love so much provide that to you. You know, her life was hard, and she went through a lot to come here. And so when she was diagnosed with colon cancer when I was in my teens. And so when I was, you know, living with her, part of what I felt like I could do for her was music and sing songs that we remember singing. And she had a really thick accent. And so I would talk to her about, well, Grandma, it sounds like you're saying food here. The lyric is fruit or something like that. So really good memories with that. And I think that's a big reason why I was like, you know, my grandmother has cancer and she's going through treatment, and eventually she went on to hospice, but music was always something that brightened her up. And so that was really inspiring to me. Like, wow, this is something that can connect with people at every stage in life.
Based on your personal experiences, how do you think, because a lot of people may not think it's the case, but you're a living example of this, how do medicine and art, you know, not only complement but enhance each other in life?
Medicine is continually moving towards a more holistic viewpoint of the patient and their family. And we see so many positive outcomes when patients are treated holistically and seen as a whole person instead of, you know, one diagnosis or a set of diagnoses. And I think that's a really big way how music and medicine can enhance each other. Not in silos, right? But like together and moving forward and helping the patient progress towards their goals. Some of the best work that I've done here has been so interdisciplinary, right? Like co-treating with a chaplain or attending a family meeting with a physician, because we can offer different perspectives that are all equally as important to the patient. And some of the best outcomes I've seen are when physicians are able to ask a patient about, you know, what's important to you? What are your values, right? And how can we, as your interdisciplinary team, help you to meet those values?
If you hadn't pursued medicine as a career, what alternative career path would you have considered? Would it have been something in the music industry?
Probably not. As a professional musician, rejection is a part of your process, and being told no is kind of the thing that makes you better. You get told and you think, why not? Let me work on that. So for me, the thing that I was looking for more was really more in the helping piece. So I have no doubt that I would be in some sort of helping profession. I'm getting my master's degree in licensed professional counseling and clinical mental health counseling. So that's probably the avenue I would have considered. But I've always had a fascination with working within the medical sphere. So I'm sure I would have found some way to make those two worlds combine.
What advice do you have for, you know, high school and college students who are interested in maybe pursuing a medical field, but are also considering, you know, how to balance that with the arts?
Yeah. I would say, and this is hard to do, it's easier said than done, but spend some time focusing on your values and the things that you really value in your day-to-day life. For some people, those values are very product-based, right? They might be financially based, and that's something to absolutely consider. Some people, their values are very much in service and and giving of themselves to others. It might be process based or creation based. So I think that when you figure out really what those values are, the profession will come, right? And I think as high school juniors and seniors, there's so much pressure on putting, like, how many times are you asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And like, what do you want to major in college, right? So the focus is put on that end result, right? Like, oh, I want to be I want to do this. Sometimes we get there and we figure out, ooh, maybe this isn't really what I want to do because the values of this profession don't match up with mine. And so I think that's really important, figuring out what it is you enjoy about doing things rather than figuring out what it is about a certain profession you enjoy. So if you realize, like I realized, I really need to work with people. I really need to be in a profession where I can be with people and help people. Then you have a million choices, right? And I feel like I could be happy in any sort of helping profession. The difference for me is that I had that other love of music, and there just happens to be this amazing profession that combines the two. And so I feel like you can save yourself a lot of that back and forth if you just kind of go inside and figure out like what is important to me in a profession rather than what profession is important to me.
Like knowing your and let everything else flow from there. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Just to wrap up on what has been an incredible interview with you, do you have a favorite quote or saying that sort of captures how you feel about medicine, fine arts, life?
There is, and this is going to be probably pretty specific to my work as a palliative and an end-of-life music therapist, but it ties into medicine so well. And this quote was quoted in a book that I just read. It's called The 11th Hour, Music and Medicine in the 11th Hour at the End of Life. And it's by a palliative care physician who's based out of Los Angeles, California. She quotes this in her book, and I had to go look up the full quote because I just resonated with it so much. And it talks about kind of what I was mentioning before of there are things that you're not going to be able to fix, and you're not going to be able to put your square peg in the round hole. And the quote is, most things will be okay eventually, but not everything will be. Sometimes you'll put up a good fight and lose. Sometimes you'll hold on really hard and realize there's no choice but to let go. Acceptance is a small, quiet room. And it's kind of this thing of you can bring people to where you want them to go. You can drag them along with you as hard as you want to try. But at the end of the day, where they will find the most peace and the most acceptance is probably within themselves. And it's nothing that we can take externally and put in them. It's nothing that we can help them to process in 5 minutes. It really is a long journey, and we're just, as palliative care clinicians and as medical professionals, a lot of the time our job is to witness that with them and just kind of go walk that journey with them. So
and that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful gift. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was incredibly moving. Yeah. And I would love the link to that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Alrighty. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Majesca. And thank you all for tuning in for day 2 of Infusions of Art. I hope to see you all in the next episode. Until then, take care and have a great rest of the day. And one more big thank you to Majesca.
Thanks for having me.